On the air and streaming on the web since 1996, this is the Cinematic Sound Radio Network.
The Space Avenger is on your case.
Oh!
Greetings, Starfighter. You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada. Get ready? Prepare for blastoff.
Okay, let's go.
Today on the Essential Soundtracks, you'll hear as Eric Woods and I discuss one of my all-time favorite films from the 1980s, The Last Starfighter. We'll discuss some background on the film, talk about some of the unique elements of the score, as well as talk about Craig Safin and his work on the film music. So sit back, relax, as the show begins now.
Essential Soundtracks.
Hello, I am your host, Randy Andrews, and you may have noticed something new today. The title of the show is The Essential Soundtracks. The Essential Soundtracks is going to be the name on Cinematic Sound Radio. Soundtrack Alley is a separate podcast that will be through Soundtrack Alley. So, as on Cinematic Sound Radio, that is what it will be called, is the Essential Soundtracks. And of course, joining me today is Eric Woods. Eric, how are you, and when did you see this film?
It's been a while, Randy, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has been a while.
I don't know how many people have known. I'm trying to get better from an illness. I had strep throat, and just, the biggest thing that's happening right now is trying to control my breathing issues. It's just really nagging. So, but I've done a couple of other live streams and other podcasts and things of that sort. It's still a little bit difficult to kind of get through a long talk, but I'll mute out all the coughing, and we'll just try to get through the show so that you can just hear the essential soundtracks and not my coughs.
Well, that's great, though. Today we're talking about The Last Starfighter. One of the key movies of the 1980s.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's for someone my age, 1984, probably 1985 is when I saw it on video. I'm 9 years old and just impressionable, and I'm just lapping up these magical 80s films that just send my imagination, to overdrive. And I'm talking about The Explorers, and then, The Goonies in 1985. Of course, there's Star Wars. Just all these wonderful movies where you, or at least myself, as an audience member watching this, and a kid watching this, you're just sucked up into the adventure, and it's somewhere where you'd like to be. You want to be Han Solo or Luke Skywalker, or you want to be, one of the three kids building a spaceship and going out into space, and or with Tron getting sucked up into a computer program and experiencing that. But the last Starfighter was such a unique experience because it felt like a Steven Spielberg film, a Spielberg film that he didn't make. And those kind of Amblin Entertainment types of films really stuck with me. And so when you're thinking about Amblin, you're thinking of, Back to the Future, Young Sherlock Holmes, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, all those wonderful, imaginative, creative films. And this one just had a perfect story aimed at kids my age. When you think about, video games and in arcades, I mean, you spend hours just feeding quarters to these machines. But then when you think about it, maybe they are a test from, an extraterrestrial and a planet under siege, and they're looking for, some of the bravest, skilled pilots to help, with their war and save their race. And that was just so fantastic. But I mean, you just don't pick up on that until Centauri shows up and tells you, that was the reason for the video game. But everything about even the beginning of this movie just sucks you into Alex's world of just living on this, this trailer park, and, these a whole bunch of different characters living there, and just the innocence of it all. And it just seems so wholesome, friendly, unpretentious. It just seems like another one of those movies where it's like the normal teenager who's yearning for something better finally gets to experience something extraordinary. You soak it all in. But the other thing that works extremely well is that there's the characters work, the actors work, the chemistry between everybody works. And so it feels real. And even though there's a lot of comedy, lightheartedness in this film, it also feels like it takes the subject matter seriously. And, you go along for the adventure, and it's a wonderful adventure, and it's one that I'm always happy to return to. So yeah, when I saw it when I was 9 on VHS, in my parents' living room, I was just sitting up on the floor, cross-legged, my eyes wide open, my jaw on the floor. It was like a Star Wars film, but just aimed at kids my age, that sort of felt like this could actually happen, where Star Wars was this intergalactic adventure that took place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You almost felt like this is the sort of things that you would love to have happen to you as a kid, so that you can just kind of escape your real world and go on a grand adventure.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly the same feeling that I got. I was enthralled with this film. It was, in fact, like, once it finally came to television and I recorded it, I think it made a special appearance on Disney. And I was able to record it on Disney when my dad had subscribed to it way back in the day. And I wore out the tape. Like, I watched it so much that I could recite the lines, and I knew every scene, every detail. And when people would ask me, or when people would tell me things that would happen in the movie or things regarding the movie, I'd say, no, it didn't happen that way. It was this, because I'd watched it so much. And it was just this big, grand space adventure. And you were like, just like you said, you get wrapped up in these characters, and some of them are very comedic. the old lady that always was trying to watch her soaps, or the old guy that just was, there, and he was a really nice guy to everybody, and he would really like give Alex some good advice, and it's like you gotta grab hold with your two hands, and you gotta hold tight, and those type of lines were so real, so grounding for even us as impressionable youth as we were, because it created in us those dreams to be able to really grab hold of our dreams. And I love every aspect of this movie. Even like you look at it now in the CGI that was back then to now, it's totally different. Totally, but it the crazy thing was it felt like a video game. Like it felt like you were inside a video game, and it felt like the same feelings as Tron. Like the same technology, maybe a little bit better technology for the animation and stuff of what they used, but so many good things about this movie just like stand out to me. It's an amazing, really fantastic movie. And I mean, sure, it doesn't hold up. The special effects definitely don't hold up, but so many things in the movie do hold up. And I think certain characters really like we can reach out to. Like you mentioned Centauri, and Centauri, which was Robert Preston, he had been known for The Music Man, and this was kind of a last hurrah for him, because he didn't get many acting roles even after this film. He did a few more, but he died quite a number of years ago, and but he was one of those like the way it was put was he was like this fast talking space salesman. He was trying to sell the idea of becoming a part of the Legion of the Star League. And it just, so many things about him, about the car. Can we talk about the car? The Star Car. I mean, it was based on the DeLorean, and it had the gull-wing doors, but it had like this sleek, like almost clean outside to where you couldn't see any entry. And that was one of the coolest things about it.
Yeah, I love the car. Centauri, yeah, he's an interesting character, and he almost, I'm not sure whether he comes across as, I'm not sure he comes across as like the father figure that Alex might not have had. But what I do remember is that as much as he's like this intergalactic traveling salesman / recruiter for Rylos, he can't convince Alex to stay, which is quite unique. I mean, in Star Wars, Luke just says, yeah, after his uncle and aunt are burnt to a crisp, he's like, yeah, I want to learn the Force and let's get going. And Luke doesn't look back. Whereas, Alex is terrified, which I thought is really interesting because he didn't know what he was signing up for. And he actually didn't sign up for this. He's just playing a game and he's really good at it. But then, he actually rejects him. And then you can see Centauri's disappointment and something that he didn't expect to have happen. And which I thought was clever from the script. And then, of course, as we go on a little bit further, we realize that Alex is needed. Alex wants to go. But, as much as I say that, yeah, I'm a kid and I would love to have this happen to me, it's like you'd be scared to death if you were all of a sudden whisked away into space and told that you got to fly a Gunstar and, destroy the bad guys like that. It's terrifying. So yeah, I love that little aspect of it. Like one of my favorite moments early on is, Alex playing the game and beating the record. And again, you're not 100% sure what that means in the real world, but it just seems like it's one of those small wins. It's
an epic moment.
It is, but it's a small win that Alex needed because he's just completely and utterly down on his luck. He's pretty much stuck looking after the trailer park.
Yeah,
and
he's having to fix this and that.
Incredibly responsible kid for his age. And, instead of going off with his friends, he has to stay back, and as much as it kills him to do it, he has to stay back and help somebody with their, the cable or the electricity or whatever. And he has to give up on being a kid. And as much as he's a teenager, it's just giving up on those life moments to be an adult.
Not only that, though, but he was also pretty mature for what he was doing, because
Yes.
he was like you and your friends, you're going out, you drink, you do all this stuff, and it's like, what does it get you? He's looking at it from a different perspective, because he's like, I want to do something with my life. He doesn't want to stay in that trailer park, and that's why he was trying to get into that college or whatever, because that was a goal for him. And when he didn't, it just it really ruined him in a lot of ways. But with the idea of the game, it kind of gave him, like you said, a small victory.
Yeah, but most of the film, though, does come back to Alex's responsibilities to his family and protecting his family. And that happens in the middle of the film when he returns and then is attacked, and Centauri tells him that, the only way to protect his family on Earth, because the Kodan Armada has already destroyed the Starfighter base. I think that's what it was. And, they're not going to stop there, and they're going to come for Earth. And then that's where the stakes are raised.
Get higher.
And yeah, and Alex is like, okay, I'll go and help. But then he doesn't realize that he's actually the last Starfighter at that at that point. So, there's these earned moments that, again, he's just not thrown into battle, and he's already 100% awesome. And again, throughout the film, he's always constantly learning, and he's not perfect right away. And I love that. I love it. Even though he's a, crack shot at the last Starfighter on the arcade version, he's still trying to get used to the controls and the Gunstar and the responsibility of it all, and the real life implications. I think there's a lot more in this movie than what people give it credit for. It's not just kind of on the surface. There's a lot of deep meaning in here that resonates, and I think it's incredibly well put together and pulled off.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's so many aspects of this movie that are really unique. Like, there's these neat little tidbits of information that we get from, like, trivia and different things. Like, they talk about the Atari system and how there was they wanted to make a video game for it, and then they couldn't because they called it Solaris, because they couldn't get the game controls to work right. And and then like, they tried to have a line of action figures. You can still find them on eBay, but they're...
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're on there, but they're like $500. But it was like, they put them in 2-packs, and they had like characters like Maggie and Centauri and Grieg and Zur and Krill and a Kodan and the tentacled Starfighter and a Zandozan and an Enduran. And it's so funny because it's like they couldn't produce it because it didn't raise enough money at the time to create a better like engagement of the characters. Even though the movie was fantastic. The movie was only shot in 40 days.
Yeah. And it just underperformed. And that's where,
which is sad.
It is, but it eventually became this cult classic. But I mean, again, I wasn't taken to the theater to see this. So, but I mean, then again, I didn't go to the movies all that often when I was a kid. I mean, I saw a lot of the stuff, but as I said, this one grabbed a hold of me immediately. And, when I, grew up and I was able to find it again, on VHS and own it and watch it, it was like I'd watched it yesterday. All the same feelings came back. And again, it's a movie that has heart, genuine heart. It none of it seems like saccharine. It everything in this feels earned. And I really do wish it did well. I don't think we needed a sequel, but I just wish more people around that time
would have appreciated
it because, again, you're 1984 and
1984 was a big year for movies.
It was, but you're also coming off of Star Wars, and that's all anyone was comparing this to, and there are some similarities, but it's its own story, and it definitely doesn't look like Star Wars. Because of the special effects. And I mean, we were talking about how, of course, they look dated today, but I mean, that was revolutionary for its time. I mean, besides Tron, this was one of the first films that was using, computer generated effects, the way it was, being used. And I mean, I don't know how they managed to pull it off. I mean, yeah, sure. Some of it feels a little clunky but there's other shots. There's like that, when they first take off and they're kind of going through that, it's not a time tunnel, but it's like a wormhole. And there's just some beautiful, beautiful imagery. I think if they had more time, they could have, added more textures, better lighting. I would say this, out of all the things that have gotten special editions and redone special effects and whatever, I wish they'd throw some money. I'm not saying that they have to replace this film. This film has a place in history. This version of the film should always be shown. But I think for the fans to kind of get a sense of what it could look like, maybe with more passable special effects and visual effects, I mean, it would cost a lot of money, but could you imagine what this would look like if it had even if they took the time and care as much as they did for when they were redoing the special effects for Star Trek, the original series. Something along those lines where if you can make it look like as if you're using, they had access to ILM in 1984, what kind of special effects in The Last Starfighter could you use just to kind of clean it up and give it an update? And I think that would be fantastic. It would be magical. That would be a lot of fun. And I'm wondering whether that'd bring more people to the film. Because we talked about Star Trek V a long time ago. And, one of the reasons people stay away from that is because the special effects are so shoddy. It's one of the biggest gripes about that movie. But I think that if William Shatner had got ILM and it got proper special effects, I think that film would be appreciated a lot more than what it is. So I think that for its time and for what they were trying to do and the amount of time that they had to do it, I mean, it's quite impressive that they managed to pull off that many shots and make it look somewhat convincing.
Well, and I think another thing about this movie that makes it so real, Nick Castle directed the movie and he had done Halloween 2. The amazing thing about it is even the practical effects, like the creature effects, I think are pretty spot on. They're really well done. They have really good creature effects, and even with the alien that I talked about earlier for the one of the figures they wanted to make, the tentacled looking alien. Alex at one point steps on his feet and he like shoots up and is like yelling at him, and and it's so real. Like, it looks so amazingly real, and you could just see him be that upset. But then also you look at the practical effects of even the Star Car and how they, also used like it as a visual effect. They built a physical one, and then they covered it over with sheet metal, and then the car didn't move very fast and it sounded terrible. But like a lot of it was changed with like sound effects and the digital care of what they did with the Star Car. And like, I mean, they were able to take lessons from Tron, of how they did like the digital rendering of certain things like the bikes and the ships and things in the computer world. And they changed it to be like motion blurring, and they made it look even still kind of real, even though it was in space and it didn't, like seem to fit so well. But it did. It held up for the effects that they were able to use. So I found that kind of cool.
Oh, yeah. And I don't want any of this stuff replaced. It should be there. Anybody that's working in special effects or CGI effects should really be looking at this film as a historical moment. I think that's what makes it really special. I mean, it is a special effects spectacle, but it has the story to back it up. And they did a masterful job in their casting of, Lance Guest and Catherine Mary Stewart, who, I just had the biggest crush on when I saw her on screen. It's like, holy smokes. Yeah, that's the girlfriend I want when I'm.
She was pretty good in Night of the Comet.
Yeah. But they just seemed, the relationship felt real, like they'd been together forever, like they'd known each other since they were kids, and they've grown up, and they're gonna spend their life together. And you can tell easily, and again, it's Catherine Mary Stewart and her acting. You can just see that when Alex can't go with them after being called back to fix a few things at the trailer park, she's not angry. She feels for him. That's projected. And it could easily have been a conflict, as much as it does become a conflict when the beta unit shows up, which is actually quite humorous. But that could have easily destroyed that relationship. But the genuine, real relationship between Alex and Mags, I bought it right from the beginning. And selling that right off the bat, I think that's a difficult thing to do. And Nick Castle did a great job and had two great actors pulling that off. And those key scenes at the beginning of the movie pay off at the end, where, both of them are willing to give up their lives on Earth to go off and help save the universe. And that's what makes, their relationship feels real. You care about them. And that's all you want out of your characters. You got to have the audience actually care.
Invested.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where all the feels come from. And then, of course, you got, the music and the sound effects and all that working in perfect harmony. I mean, it's an ending that is about as emotional to me as, the E.T. ending is a couple of years earlier, or, any numerous brilliant emotional endings that James Horner ever worked on. It's up there for me. It just hits me right in the feels. And I go back to that end scene constantly. And we could probably talk about this once we get into the score, but it's a very, very special finale, I think. Again, especially for a very impressionistic 9-year-old kid watching it.
Yeah.
Because you know what? As much as I want to be Alex, Lewis steals the scene just with one look up and one word saying wow. It's like, man, yeah, that's me right there.
Yeah, and looking at it from his perspective, it's a bit different. And like the scene with the beta unit, and he's like fixing his head, and Lewis is looking at it, and he's like, what's going on? And he's like, Lewis, you're having a nightmare.
Yeah.
Go back to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great, and like I said, the humor works. It doesn't seem out of place, and yeah, I love that scene too.
Fantastic. And like, I mean, we could go on and on about different scenes that we love, but like, I think one of the reasons we love this movie so much is because the score works so well in the film. Craig Safin worked super hard on this score, and I loved there was a comment he made in the interview I had done with him. He said the themes that he picked were very simple, but he chose a few themes and worked with those themes to where he could use like the main theme and make it sound sad, or sound it happy, or make it sound adventurous, or sound climactic. And he used those basic themes in multiple different ways, and using the electronic elements with synthesizers. And he didn't entirely use synthesizers. He mainly used an orchestra, and it just it was just one of those amazing scores that sticks with you. Like, I can think of it right now in my head of how good the score really is. And it just, like certain themes will stand out, like Mag's theme, or Alex's theme, or even the Starfighter theme. Those three themes are they stand out dramatically. And then you have the key, like, minor themes of, like, the trailer park, or the people of the trailer park. And then you have Rylos, and especially the one character that I don't think gets quite enough love is Centauri. Because Centauri's theme is so unique for his character, because this is Robert Preston we're talking about. It's like Craig Safin really had to sell it. He had to really like bump up the level because he was he had this charisma about him. And I mean, he was 64 in the movie, and a lot of people thought he was much older. And it's too bad that he died 4 years later, but he played the role so well that having Centauri's theme so iconic, you will always think of Centauri as Robert Preston. There could never be a remake of The Last Starfighter with someone else because you would always think of Robert Preston as being that character.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about like a remake of The Last Starfighter, and I'm like, oh no, they can't do it. But then again, they remade Jumanji, and it was actually quite clever. I'm just trying to think of
How they would do it.
how they would do it and how you'd capture that innocence. I could see them trying to do it, but there's not an audience for this, and I don't think kids these days feel the same way.
They couldn't identify it.
Yeah, they're doing their own thing, and it's like, you know, I wouldn't see this.
I think the difference is like the difference between like Ready Player One and something like a remake of The Last Starfighter or creating something called Armada. It wouldn't work today.
No,
because
and it's
of
such
the
a
generation.
I mean, as much as this film has a cult following, I think it's a small group, rather than, let's say, you know, the fans of Blade Runner, where you can expand on that universe. I mean, one of the worst ideas would be a sequel. Yeah, I mean, they should have thought about the sequel 20 years ago, or even earlier than that. I think it stands alone perfectly. I can tell my own sequel story in my own head. It's this small little corner of this 80s nostalgia wonderland that I appreciate, and I'm just kind of glad it's there and its own little thing, and you know, people have moved on, but you can always go back and revisit it and you know, experience those same feelings that you had. And you're right, Craig Saffin's score is a masterpiece, and again, he, much like the film, is fighting against criticisms of his score sounding like Star Wars. And so I personally think that this is about as different from Star Wars as you can get, even though he's using a massive symphony orchestra, but he's using an array of electronics, and he's writing in a different way. He had mentioned in the liner notes of the Entrada album, where, you know, Williams is showing an affinity towards English masters with his orchestrations like Gustav Holst. Saffin turned to Sibelius,
which
created,
is brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's so good. Like, I've listened to some of the pieces that Craig Saffin had told me about with Sibelius, and I was like, wow, that is something. That is really, that's perfect. It's perfect for what he was trying to pull off.
Absolutely. And so that's where you can have that massive symphony orchestra, which was all the rage back then. I mean, I think even Nick Castle said, you know, I couldn't bring in a barrage of, like, you know, rock and rollers, guitars and drums and try to, you know, play something modern over top of this. He would have said he would have got fired. This is the type of film that needed that sweeping main theme, you know, those heavy action cues, and that sense of yearning. You know, Alex is looking towards the future and actually not knowing where he's going to be, although he looks at the stars and the planets in his room, and that inspires him. But he's also thinking about, you know, where he's going to end up in his life, and he's kind of at a crossroads and he doesn't know where he's going to go. And that's where the humanity of this score comes out. And as you said, Saffin can take his main theme and just twist it and move it around and play it in different time signatures, and it all mean different things. It's something that Jerry Goldsmith is was very skilled at doing, was able to take one theme and just transform it into a love theme or an action theme or whatever. And that's what also helps make the theme memorable. I mean, it's not overplayed, but it's played enough that you kind of get a sense of what it is. And of course, you get the great main title, so you can hear it right away. But he's able to pick it apart and use it in different variations. I also kind of like his more, I'm going to say kind of like staccato style. There's a lot of like hits and beats and stops and starts, and you hear that in Remo Williams as well. It's not so fluid, might be the wrong word, but I hope you understand that, except for maybe Alex's first test, which has those running strings and it feels like it's a fluid piece of music, but this one feels like it's a little more, like, especially in the action music, really kind of staggered and lots of orchestral hits and big brass blasts and hits on percussion and things of that sort. So the comparison to Star Wars, I understand it, but I think that's cheap, and I really do think that Safin managed to make this score stand clearly apart from what John Williams was doing, but also still write that large-scaled symphonic sci-fi adventure space opera score, but really, really make it his own.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And there's so much to... Like, we'll talk about some of these cues, because I guess like 75% of the score is the main theme, which is really interesting because he was able to twist it so well. Like, there's a scene where Alex is sitting in his room and he's looking up at the mobile of the universe, or not the universe, but the solar system. And he's like mouthing the words of the people that are outside.
Yeah.
It's that
his mundane
bad.
life.
It's his mundane life, and he's thinking about that. But then, the scene shifts. But at that point, Craig Safin, he uses that main theme with Alex's theme. Like he blends those together and creates this unique piece of music that is like a dream-like moment for Alex. So let's really get into some of the cues for the movie. Some of the key cues that really stand out, and Craig really, he just pulls out the stops for like embracing that large orchestral synth combo, for the score. And first, I think it's, like I was mentioning, we're going to talk about Alex Dreams and Record Breaker. And those two like tie together because, Alex is dreaming of his future, of what he could do. And then he's like, he wants to get out of his rut. And so he goes and plays the game. And I have to say this because of my love for the score, but this cue is melodic and rich with such a sense of colors for the instruments being presented in the score. It's simple, and yet it gives us the main theme in a lyrical and a calm, like, wistfulness. I don't know if that's the right word, but when Alex looks up, to that solar system mobile, it gives him a sense of, like, determination and time to think. And I love how Safin uses the flute and the French horn to really stand out in this cue, to give us, like, the prelude to the main hero theme for the film. And that comes out when he's playing the video game. What did you think on this cue?
Yeah, the Alex Dream cue, I mean, you said it perfectly. It's like I said, it seems like it's right out of a Spielberg movie. Your main character is stuck, kind of trying to look forward and see his future, and doesn't really know where it's going to be. And as much as he's looking up at the planets in the solar system, it's more of a metaphor for him, just like, I want to get out of this small community and go out to the big city and explore and really find out who he is. And the music conveyed during that scene is just so tender. It's that B theme of Safin's that he uses. It's tender. It tugs at the heartstrings. I mean, as much as it feels like he's kind of yearning, it also is incredibly sad, because, as you said, he's mouthing the words of the neighbors, and it just seems like that's just the everyday thing, and that's his mundane life. It's every day, wake up, not getting to be what he wants to be, whatever that is, and he's just kind of stuck, and he feels like he's going to be stuck there for the rest of his life, because he is a responsible teenager, and he feels like he needs to help take care of his mom and his brother and Megs, and then the whole community, because the whole community is the family. It's like a family to him. So it's tough to say goodbye. And so you get all that within the cue that Safin writes, but then all of a sudden, when we get into the record breaker, where Alex goes back to the thing that he's good at, playing the Last Starfighter arcade game, and he picks it up, and he's just kind of, there's no goal, but all of a sudden he's having just the game of his life. And it starts off kind of slow, still exciting, but kind of minimal in the orchestration. But then as the game continues, and as we realize that he's going to break the record, there are more instruments added, and the excitement is ramped up until we finally see him, beat and break the game. And Safin is playing it like a traditional action cue. So everybody's excited on screen, and we as the audience, we're watching a guy playing a video game, but he's up, you know what I mean? But it's exciting, and it means something, and it's almost foreshadowing what's going to happen later on. As much as Alex has no idea what it really means, he breaks the record, everybody's happy, he's proud of it. It's something that, it's an accomplishment for him, but there are bigger things ahead. And, Safin will play similar music later on when he's in a real Gunstar, and with real life consequences and danger. And so it's dynamite writing. I absolutely love it. And yeah, there's just two great contrasting emotions that are happening with these two cues.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really gets me about this scene in the movie is the energy behind it. It gets spread through the whole community, and it just, like, this energy of the crowd, and that's, like, with Craig Safin's music, it, like, builds your anticipation to see him continue and to win, and it's like everybody is, like, that energy is just all there, and it's like, yeah, you're amped up just with the music and of what is happening on screen. And it's a brilliant combination of film directing as well as the work along with the score. It works perfectly.
I think what's so great about it is that it's like the highlight for everybody within that community. For anybody else, it's like, oh, great, you beat the high score in an arcade game, but everybody's invested. It's something special. It's a story that they can tell tomorrow, because they might not get out very often. And so finally something exciting has happened here, and it's happened to someone within their own little community. And even Mags is excited. And I think and again, that goes back to that relationship. She is genuinely excited and happy for her boyfriend. I mean, it could be the most cheesy thing in the world, this high score victory on a video game that really essentially means absolutely nothing in real life. But she's excited for him. She's excited that he's smiling, he's happy, and that makes her happy. And she's there for the long run with Alex. And again, that dynamic, that relationship, the chemistry between the two of them, it pays off at the end of this film. And so you need that, and I really like the way that they tackled their relationship in this film.
I agree. So let's go ahead and play Alex Dreams and Record Breaker. Next, I thought we could cover two cues together since they go really well together. And that would be target practice and Alex's first test. Now these really show like the initial phase of Alex really taking on the Starfighter role, because this is after he had returned to Earth and after his battle with the Zandozan. Or not really that, but yeah, I guess it was, because he gets shot at. And then the beta unit is there and he's getting shot at, and the Zandozan doesn't know which is which. And it's just it's really unique because Alex is now in space having to take on this role, and he's being trained by Grig, which, by the way, Grig is one of my favorite characters in the movie. And he had to do like exaggerated expression just to get movement in that mask that he had to wear, the prosthetics. And I think the banter between those two is just fantastic, and they work really, their chemistry is really good on screen. I think, I mean, they were a really great match. And I think my favorite line from Alex is, "Great, I'm a million miles from home and this alien is telling me to relax." And the brilliance and the excitement that are instilled in these cues is just fantastic. It's energetic, it's electric, it's exhilarating, and he's just shooting targets. And then finally, there is the test. Zoor's ship, one of the scouts, comes out of nowhere, and he's having to go up against a live target. And Grig tells him, "This is your first live target." And he's like, "Live?" And he's like, "Wait a minute, I'm about to take a life." And he didn't, he hadn't even really considered this to be a ending scenario. He hadn't thought that far ahead to think, oh, I might have to actually kill someone. and it, it's a really good lead up to the confrontation with Zoor and the command ship.
Yeah, I love these two cues. Target practice, again, plays on the ideas of, Alex back on Earth playing the actual arcade game. And so he's, trying to figure out the controls. I love it when he can't figure it out, but he has to take his gloves off. Mm-hmm. And so he's bare hands on the controls, and then all of a sudden he starts doing extremely well. And again, it's Safin's just kind of playing up the fun of the moment, and I think that's we needed that before it got too serious. We just had to see him somewhat, enjoying this video game come to life. It's exactly what it is. Like, I'm sure he can't believe that he's behind the controls of a Gunstar, and I mean, that would also be very surreal for any of us. For that to happen. So I love that. And then Alex's first test, as I mentioned, a much more fluid track that has these running strings, but again, these big blasts and heroic fanfares. Really, really exciting. It's one of my favorite cues from the score. Very much so, because I love the different orchestration. It ramps up the excitement before we get to the final battle, which is much more deadly serious. But I think Safin understands the feeling that the kind of the nervous energy that Alex has while going through this, but it's also a sense of fun. Not so much a dream come true, but he's, like I said, he's behind the controls of a video game come to life, and I'm sure that would be exciting for anybody in that moment. And so you really feel that with these two cues.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and play target practice and Alex first test. Next on the show is Death Blossom, or also the / Ultimate Weapon. The build-up for this piece is all in the beginning with those bombastic horns, as well as the unique synth chords highlighting the intensity about what they're about to do. They're about to go up against the command ship. The ship keeps getting pounded, like their ship, the Gunstar, keeps getting pounded by lasers, and very soon it stops because they're no longer able to do anything. They're waiting for them to kind of be drawn in. And the Starfighter fires the ultimate weapon, which disables most of the larger ship, as well as taking the power from their ship. So the power returns and they destroy that central hub of power from Zur's command ship, and it sends it into the moon and destroys them. And I think the best line for that whole scene is when that command ship is actually going into the moon. One of the lackeys is like, we're caught in the moon's gravitational pull. What do we do? And the lead commander, his little eyepiece goes, and he goes, we die.
Yeah.
And I love that line because it's so final.
Mm-hmm.
We're not escaping, we die. Which made it so much better for seeing how Craig arms us with this tense music and then shows the ultimate danger to our heroes, but also the finality of Zur's command. Because Zur is no longer commanding that ship. He, of course, escapes, leaving things open. However, we get Craig's really boisterous orchestra to give us our finale to the villains, to show that they're finally destroyed. And what do you think about all this?
Yeah, this is, everything just coming together in probably the most serious of the action cues. This is where, life is on the line here. And it's just not Alex's, it's everybody's. I mean, if bad guys win, they go to Earth and they'll destroy everything there too. So there's stakes in this battle. And it's just, there's these huge blasts of orchestral material that plays throughout this cue. And I also like how there's an incorporation of that Alex's first test string writing in here as well. But it's exciting, but it's capturing the seriousness of the battle and what needs to be done in order to make sure that the good guys win. And so, the only time that we then get relief is the cue afterwards, where finally you get the big victory march as the Gunstar spins around and flies towards Cameron as you see the big the ship crash into the moon. And it's very Star Wars, but that's where the sense of relief and fun comes back into it. But this is really a big, massive action track. And before I forget, I really do want to say that I am a massive fan of this recording. And the recording engineer is named Lyle Burbridge, and he didn't do a lot, but I really do think that he recorded two of the best sounding scores in the 80s. One was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which it sounds absolutely magnificent. And the other one is The Last Starfighter, and this one sounds absolutely magnificent. Now, I'm not sure whether he went on and continued recording for Safin later on, but yeah, there's just something about the sound that I wish all scores sounded like this. Very clear, very distinct. And of course, we now have a newly remastered version of this score through Entrada Records, and it sounds better than has ever sounded. Just clear, crisp, punchy. The big thing is the brass really stands out. The trombones just rip. The low brass sounds incredible. The recording of the woodwinds just luscious, and so yeah, he's one of the unsung heroes of this film score because it just sounds absolutely brilliant. And so I kind of wish he had done more. And he passed away in 2006, so he helped record The Color Purple, The Last Starfighter, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, but then he doesn't really have a career after 1985, so I'm really not 100% sure what happened, but he recorded some, like Color Purple sounds great, Last Starfighter sounds great, Indiana Jones Temple of Doom sounds great, and then he worked on something called Exposed, and so anyway, I just wanted to say that before I forget.
Well, let's go ahead and appreciate his recording mastery through Craig Saffin's amazing score by playing the cue Death Blossom Ultimate Weapon. we've come down to an end to the Soundtrack Essentials. I'd like to thank Alexander Shebel for composing the theme music that you hear. Find his work through xanderscores.com. Lastly, we're going to play Into the Starscape, which is one of the best ending cues in existence because it's just so amazing. This is the grand finale, the conclusion to the exciting space adventure that we've just experienced, and it made all our imaginations soar when seeing this. I mean, I really appreciate this piece as it gives us the grand themes of the film and brings together everything into a tight little package, a whole 7-minute package. And this is one of my favorite cues from the album, and it's probably the most often played on repeat for myself. So I really appreciate this. I appreciate the whole score and the film, and it works so well together. I know we didn't cover Centauri's theme today on the show, but before we start getting into like just playing the music and ending the show today, one of the interesting things was the EWI that was used in Centauri's theme. It was like a clarinet, and it was run through a synthesizer, but it was mobile. Like they have YouTube videos where you like look up EWI and you type in EWI synthesizer, and it's this long elongated instrument, and you think that it looks like a giant clarinet, but it's its own instrument, and they used it really well for Centauri's theme. So I had to mention that because it's one of those unique things that Craig Safin introduced into the score that made Centauri's theme so unique for the film and made him so, I guess, believable for who he was in the movie. Eric, what are your thoughts in regard to Into the Starscape?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it earlier, just Into the Starscape, hands down, I mean, one of my top 5, top 10 finale cues to any motion picture. And again, you have Safin bringing the heart and emotion of the film, grounding it back into what matters. And as much as we've just seen this great space battle and, Alex being serenaded by the, were they on Rylos?
Yes.
Yeah. So, we see that and it's great. But the big thing is that Alex needs to go home and he has a big decision to make. Does he end his career as a starfighter just like that, and then just kind of goes home and leaves the, I guess, are they called Rylans?
Mm-hmm.
On their own, or does he go back and realize that, this is his destiny?
He's got to say goodbye to his family.
Well, yeah, but the decision of stay back with the family, stay on Earth, or does he have, or is now his destiny in his life to be the starfighter? Now he has purpose. And so he has to make that decision, and it's a difficult decision. And not again. I absolutely love this scene because he, they land at the Starbright, and he takes the elevator down and sees everybody again, and his main goal is to bring Maggie with him. Obviously, his mind is already made up that he's going back no matter what. And it's a very tough decision because, again, his relationship with not only his mother and his brother and the rest of the community there, it's his relationship with Maggie that he's willing to sacrifice to go and keep the universe safe. And so when she is not sure about her decision to join him, you see the disappointment in his face, but he's like, okay, but I've got to go. And it's just heartbreaking. And Safin is playing to those emotions. You can just feel the heartbreak in his music.
Why can't you just stay?
Maggie, I have to leave. I want you to come with me.
Alex! Hurry!
Well, I gotta go. Bye.
Alex, we can't hold off their radar any longer.
Yeah, okay. I gotta go, Mom. Bye. Make it easy. So long, everybody.
But then it begins building to something as Maggie then makes the decision that she's gonna go, and she has to talk to her grandmother, and grandmother's like, you just go.
Granny.
Be sure and write, or whatever it is they do up there.
Now all of a sudden they embrace, they're back together, and it's just this massive flourish, and everything is good in the world. They ascend on the elevator.
Watch what you're doing. Keep your distance now. This baby really packs a punch.
Bye!
Look at. Bye. Bye. Ain't that? Oh, go on, Clarence. They're gonna be happy up there.
The engines roar up.
So long, Alex.
We're gonna be famous, aren't we, Otis?
Yes, sir. The whole world, the whole universe.
As the spaceship takes off, we hear the call of the Starfighter video game, and Lewis is jumping up on his stool, and he's ready to battle the game. As the ship takes off, Lewis just looks up. There's all this smoke and backlight and everything, and the music, and he just screams out the word. And I'm like, well, there it is. That's the heart of the film right there. And as I said, all of a sudden you've been following Alex this whole time, but you are then suddenly transported into Lewis's body, and you're that 9-year-old kid who's just seeing all of this unfold in front of your eyes. And it's the most unbelievable, remarkable thing that's ever happened. And it's just, the reaction is, I think, what every kid, my age at that time was thinking. And it's just the most perfect emotional release. And, the ship takes off, and Safin then goes back to his main theme and plays that in full. And it's wonderful. It's just, you cannot help but leave this film with a giant smile on your face. It's just it's a feel-good movie, and you need those films, and you don't get too many of those these days. A lot of things are just always dark, has to be dark, has to be serious, has to be this, but this one's just go for the ride, enjoy it, have a good time, come out smiling. Maybe you're whistling a theme from the score. And did you enjoy the adventure that we just took you on for the past 2 hours? And for me, every single time I revisit the film or even revisit this cue, I feel the exact same emotions every single time. This score, in my opinion, is timeless because of that. And again, it's great to hear Safin have a chance to recap his main theme during the end credits. And it's movie magic. It's film music magic. It's absolutely stunning.
Exactly. Yeah, Craig Safin just weaves this brilliant score for us for this adventure movie, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful experience. So, I mean, we are at the end of an episode, a new era for this show, being the Essential Soundtracks. You can listen to most of my newer episodes here on Cinematic Sound Radio, cinematicsound.net. You can also listen to my other show, Anime Spectacular, which recently it just dropped the part 1 and 2 of Star Wars Visions for the first season. And soon I'll have some new material for Anime Spectacular coming down the way. Eric, what can you tell the audience about Patreon and other services on Cinematic Sound Radio?
Yeah, we have a Patreon. We have a wonderful community over there. So if you feel the need or want to support the show, head over to patreon.com/cinematicsoundradio. There's a bunch of tiers there. The lowest tier is $1 a month, and we thank you on the website. We thank you in the show notes. But there are various different tiers that you can select from. And that includes being a participant in the all request shows that happen. There might be an opening in some of the higher levels where you can host a show with me, or you can actually program your own show. So you don't necessarily have to host it with me, but you can come up with an hour-long playlist, and I will play that playlist for you on the show. One new thing that we are doing, and I've been thinking about this for a long time, and we're going to start offering exclusive programming over on Patreon. And it's only going to be one particular themed show. And the reason is I want to keep it to a smaller audience than exposing some of this stuff to the entire world. I really want to make these shows special, and that is doing an absolute deep dive into my collection, over 6,000 albums, but playing those albums that were given to me by composers or, PR people or record labels that were just promotional releases, never been commercially released. Like, these are going to be scores and pieces of music that you probably have never heard before. And I've got some gems, but I only want to give this to, a small community, and it's going to be centered to or focused for my patrons. So if you become a member, like I said, you can listen to this show for $1 a month. You're going to hear some stuff that genuinely you have never heard before, and I think that's going to be fun, and I think it's going to be worth the donation to hear these shows. So that's going to start up very soon, if it hasn't already by the time of this show's launch. But I'm really, really excited to start on that program.
That's fantastic. So that will conclude this show for today. So until next time, take care and happy listening.
Thank you for tuning in to the Cinematic Sound Radio Network. I want to thank Tim Burton for providing his voice for all the bumpers and stingers you hear throughout the program, and David Cosina for providing Cinematic Sound Radio's theme music. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email us at cinematicsound@yahoo.com. You can find us on social media at CinSound Radio on Twitter and Cinematic Sound on Facebook. And if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please take a moment right now to rate the show and write a brief review. Reviews help introduce potential listeners to the show. And while you're at it, head over to TeePublic to get a Cinematic Sound Radio t-shirt. And don't forget to check out Cinematic Sound Radio at cinematicsound.net.